Welcome to our Sunday gathering, everyone. A little Barry Manilow never hurts anyone. That's from 1978, and I don't know why I felt inspired to play that song, but this week is my Sunday gathering, so I got to pick the flow of things and the music. 139 weeks ago today, we created our Sunday gathering. Myself, my friends Carrie McLeod and Philip Dykes, Darren Wynn, Carrie and Phil are out doing a live demonstration at a church, so they are not with us. And poor Darren has been under the weather for going on a month now, so we'll all just send some healing his way. But we've got a special group today. From Australia, we have Avril Johnston Craig. Hi, Avril. From New Zealand, we have Shirley Ann Sharp. They are going to be doing our prayers and also our demonstration of mediumship, because here, as you know, we believe in life and the afterlife. And also, we've got a special guest. We have Peter Alessandria, who I got to meet for the first time virtually watching his Tedx talk. He's an author, attorney, photographer, now filmmaker, and he's extraordinary. Our friend Ramona, who's in our congregation right now, asked if someday we may do a Sunday gathering with the theme of forgiveness. What a great idea. And as Barry was singing, Can't Smile Without You, boy, it's kind of hard to live our life when we have things weighing us down. So Peter will be addressing that during our address today, but here in America, we're also going into Thanksgiving on Thursday, big holiday right up there with Christmas. And so we are going to not be just for giving, but Thanksgiving and all kinds of giving. So wherever you are in the world, a warm welcome to you. We're so grateful you're here. You could be anywhere, but you're with us. So we'll do our very best to put a smile on your face, love in your heart, and whatever else follows. That's why we're here. I'd like to turn it over to Avril for our opening prayer.
Thank you, Sandra. If you could just join and blend with me in prayer. Divine Spirit, we ask that as we come together in this special time of Thanksgiving, that we can feel the love of the depth of our soul, that we can feel our spirits and our resilience strong. And we ask that as we gather together, we can be aware of our loved ones in spirit. We can be aware of the healing and the guidance that is there for us. And we ask that we can feel that divine presence and love within our own soul, that we go through our lives with that soulful feeling, and we can have that upliftment, that special place of harmony and divine love within us each and every day. Amen.
Thank you, Avril. Just beautiful. All right, you get me for the reading and also for the healing. This is written by a lady called Amy Newmark. She says, two of the saddest words in the English language are, if only. I live my life with the goal of never having to say those words because they convey regret, lost opportunities, mistakes, and disappointment. And sometimes the words if only go with terrible tragedies. Think about how many times you've heard about something awful happening, accompanied by, if only he had called her back to make sure she was okay, or if only I had investigated that noise, or if only they had made sure the gate to the pool clicked behind them. My father-in-law is famous in our family for saying, take the extra minute to do it right. I'll say that again, take the extra minute to do it right. He must be doing something right since he's 91 years old and still making a lot of sense. So I always try to live by the extra minute rule. Sometimes it only takes seconds to make sure I write something down correctly, or check on something on the internet, or move an object out of the way before someone trips on it. And of course, my children, when they were young and prone to all kinds of mishaps, I lived and breathed Dad's extra minute rule. I always thought about what I could do to avoid an if only moment, whether it was something minor, like moving away a cup of coffee from the edge of the counter, or something that required a little more work, such as taping padding onto the sharp corners of a glass coffee table. I just read news about a student pilot who was thrown from an airplane when its canopy lifted off. The instructor was fine, who was belted in. The student, whose seatbelt was not fastened correctly, fell from the sky and his body was found somewhere on the ground near Tennessee. Imagine how many people are in mourning and how terrified that man must have been as he fell from the plane. Imagine the chorus of if onlys coming from his family and the flight instructor. If only I had made sure his seatbelt was correctly fastened. I don't move my car 1 inch until I hear the seatbelt click on every passenger. I unplug the iron when I leave the laundry room for even just a minute. I'd hate to get distracted, not return to the laundry room and start a fire with that forgotten iron. Imagine the if only I'd be saying then. After I realized that I could not be trusted with a tea kettle because I left it boiling on the stove for an hour, I threw it out and bought an electric tea kettle that shuts itself off. When my teenage son was first driving, I was worried that enforcing his curfew too strictly would cause him to speed and maybe have an accident. A boy in the next town was killed when he drove too fast, trying to make it home by midnight. So my son and I agreed on a plan that if he missed his curfew, he would just lose double those minutes his next time out. When I was in a car accident a few years ago, resulting in spinal surgery and permanent nerve damage, I handled it pretty well emotionally because I wasn't the driver who was at fault. So there was no if only thinking for me, and it's a lot easier to forgive someone else than it is to forgive yourself. I don't only avoid those if only moments when it comes to safety. It's equally important to avoid if only in our personal relationships. We all know people who have lost a loved one and won't have that opportunity to say, I love you or I forgive you. When my father announced he was going to the eye doctor across from my office on Good Friday, I told him that it was a holiday at my workplace and I wouldn't be there. But then I thought about the fact that he's 84 years old, and I realized that I shouldn't give up an opportunity to see him. I called him and told him I had decided to go to work on my day off after all. I do everything I can to remind myself of not wanting to say, if only. And even if it takes an extra minute to do something right, or it occasionally takes an hour or two in my busy schedule to make a personal connection, I know that I'm doing the right thing. So that's written by Amy Newmark. And now I just want to say a few of my if onlys, because as we talk about forgiveness today, I know I'm not alone. My grandmother, the day she passed, she was healthy, well, no one expected anything to happen to her. And I was about to call her, but I got distracted and I said, I'll call her tomorrow. I had that if only I called her, I would have gotten to hear her voice one more time. And I lived with tremendous guilt for quite some time. And then when my dad was passing of cancer, he was really in poor shape. And his older best friend called on the cell phone and he said, Sandra, could you put the phone to your dad's ear? I just want to tell my best friend that I love him. So I held it to my dad's ear for a few moments until he was done. And the next day my dad had passed. Well, somewhere I realized that I held that phone to my dad's deaf ear My dad was in the Air Force, and one of the loud airplanes damaged his right eardrum and he couldn't hear. And the guilt, my friends, that I felt for a long time was devastating. I am grateful for all the research and education and experiences I've had studying the afterlife, because I know that my grandmother has forgiven me. I know my dad has heard those words from his friend, and they're not doing anything in the afterlife to make us feel guilty. They don't want us to feel guilty. Guilt is a sneaky little thing, because the more we think a thought, the more our mind will create a nice neural pathway for us to think it again. So guilt is one of those things that can just really weigh us down. And when we're thinking of this topic today, I was reminded about just a few sentences that I wrote in my book, We Don't Die. And I just think you'll find this interesting, that our human brains process about 2,000 bits of information per second through our senses. Sounds like a lot, doesn't it? But it's not a lot, because at every second, there are at least 400 billion bits of information occurring in the world around us. And have you noticed anytime there's an argument, or maybe two people witness the same thing, but they see it differently? Have you ever wondered why that is? Well, your friend or your family member picked up on 2,000 bits of information. You picked up on 2,000 bits of information. Meanwhile, there's 400 billion bits of information floating around. And it's easy to see things differently and not see things from other point of view. Peter will be talking a bit more about forgiveness after this healing song that we're going to play. But during the song, normally we send healing to others, and we can certainly do that. But I'd like you to do something, if you're willing. Each one of us has those feelings of guilt and those if-onlys floating around. And I don't know if you're like me, but if I have a to-do list with a lot of things on it, it really weighs me down, and I'm not free mentally. And once I start doing things, oh my gosh, I'm feeling lighter. The same thing holds true with guilt and lack of forgiveness and these if-onlys. Like I said, our loved ones are healthy, whole, and well. They know exactly how hard it is to live a human life. There's not a bit of them that feels any resentment or ill will, but it's us in this habit of feeling guilty that can really hold us down. So what I'd like to do while this song is playing is, if you want to imagine, depending on your belief, either big hands of God or a hot air balloon with a big basket, and either put those if-onlys and guilt trips you're putting on yourselves, or things that need to be forgiven, or times you haven't forgiven yourselves, put them in the hands, put them in that hot air balloon, and bless them. Let them go sailing on their way. And if you'd like to send some healing to someone who needs it, certainly just keep them in your thoughts. But the song is Josh Groban's Brave. And I do think it takes some bravery to let go. So are you ready? We're going to just let it go. I'm going to imagine that hot air balloon. Let it go. Here we go. Thank you, Josh Groban. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I virtually met this next speaker, who is just a magnificent man. I was really touched by his Tedx talk, and he's a man who wears many hats and has done a lot of things, but you can be really inspired by the title of his book, which is Be Bigger Than You Think You Are: Overcoming Our Self-Imposed Limits to Have the Life We Want. So without further ado, he's going to show you his book. Here is Peter Alessandria. Welcome, Peter.
Great. Thank you, Sandra. Can you hear me okay? Sound is coming through good? Great. Let me just start off by thanking you so much for the invitation, and thank you for all the wonderful work that you do. It's been a pleasure getting to know you over the last few weeks. I love your book. I listened to it this week. It was fabulous. And I just want to support you in the work that you're doing in bringing this message to the world. I think it's needed, it's helpful, and it's wonderful the way you do it. So thank you. Just so people can get to know me a little bit, I'm not going to give you a biography or anything like that, but my website, you can find out a lot of information about me. You can find out about my book. It's bebiggertoday.com. It's all one word, bebiggertoday.com. There's a link there to the Tedx talk that Sandra referred to. You can also see some of the other projects I'm working on, including a film project about the afterlife, based on a book by William Buhlman. Some of you might know, he wrote a book called Adventures in the Afterlife. And hopefully this time next year, I will be in production directing a feature film based on that. So let me start out my talk today by saying, well, two things. Number one, I'm going to ask you to forgive me because I haven't memorized my talk, so I'll be referring to my notes as we go. But I also wanted to say I'm not an expert on forgiveness, all right? I'm a work in progress. So I'm just going to share with you guys what I know, what I've learned. It may or may not be true for you. I'm not here to tell you that you have to forgive anybody. That's up to you. It's a personal decision that you get to make. But listen to what I have to say, and if it's helpful, great. And if not, use this as a platform to discover what's true for you about forgiveness. So let's start off with the definition. Forgiveness is a conscious, deliberate decision to release feelings of resentment or vengeance toward a person or group that has harmed you. The dictionary defines to forgive as to stop feeling anger towards someone or something, to stop blaming, to give up resentment, to grant pardon or relief. So the first thing I want to say is that forgiveness is inviting us to give up negative emotions such as anger, judgment, condemnation, attack, retaliation, and all of that. Now, I'm going to talk about in a minute why it's difficult to do that, but I just want us to know what we're up against when we're talking about forgiveness. The problem is many of us rely on these types of things to protect ourselves and to feel safe. So if forgiveness means giving up things like anger and attack and revenge and retaliation, we have to find another way to feel safe in the world. And I'm going to suggest that a little later in my talk, what we can do. I will say forgiveness is simple, but it's definitely not easy. So go easy on yourself and forgive yourself if you have trouble forgiving. All right, first point I want to make is forgiveness is something that we do for ourselves. Most people think it's something that we're doing for another person, but that's not the case. We do it because it's good for us. It also doesn't mean that we're letting other people off the hook scot-free. As I'll discuss later, we can forgive somebody and still hold them accountable for their actions. The first thing I want to say is it's good for us because it frees us of negative emotions. So there's mounting evidence that things like anger, resentment, hatred can actually harm our bodies, can cause illness in our bodies. Things like high blood pressure, heart attacks, and other illnesses are linked to persistent negative emotional states. So by letting go of these things, we can help improve our health. At the next level, if when somebody attacks us, we forgive them instead of retaliating, we avoid the negative consequences that go along with confrontation, that go along with conflict. The fact is, everyone loses when there's strife. Just because one side loses less doesn't mean that conflict and violent confrontation are good ways to resolve our differences. Now, for me, forgiveness means taking our power back. It means no longer identifying ourselves as a victim. It's about releasing the past. Now, this is a quote from my book, chapter 7, where I talk about forgiveness. It goes, holding on to old wounds usually means repeating patterns of thinking and feeling that created those wounds in the first place. Forgiveness is about rewriting the story of what other people and/or the circumstances and conditions of life did to us. This doesn't mean condoning somebody else's unloving or inappropriate behavior. It also doesn't mean blaming ourselves for what happened or denying the pain that we may have felt. But it does mean we make a new choice in the present about how we see ourselves and others by letting go of the past. In this regard, forgiveness is synonymous with healing. So the point I want to make here is that we're in charge. We get to decide what story we tell about what happened to us. And it can either be an empowering story or a disempowering story. The truth is, again, as I talk about in my book, we're making all of this up. Everything is based on our judgments or perceptions, which are inherently subjective, meaning that we see things through the lens of our experience, and that experience is not always, or that perception is not always accurate. Number two, other people don't have to know that we're forgiving them. In fact, unless they ask for forgiveness, it's probably a good idea not to tell them that you're forgiving them. Now, why is this? Well, it's because most people think that what they're doing is the right thing to do. Justified or not, no one thinks that they're wrong when they do something. So telling someone who hasn't asked to be forgiven that we're forgiving them may actually make things worse. The message that we send to the other person is, you're bad, or you're guilty, or you're wrong, but because I'm better than you, I'm more enlightened than you, I'm more spiritual than you, I'm letting you off the hook. I guarantee that's not going to heal the relationship, guys. This is what A Course in Miracles calls forgiveness to destroy. So my suggestion is, unless someone is asked to be forgiven, the only way that other person should know that you're forgiving them is by your new beneficent attitude towards them. Jesus said, bless your enemies, and I believe he meant that literally. We should send only love and positive thoughts to the people who we think have harmed us. How else can we heal them? Sending negative energy their way only makes things worse for us and them. Now, as I'll mention in a moment, forgiveness doesn't mean we have to put ourselves in harm's way. Loving another doesn't mean we stop loving ourselves. But it does mean that we do our best to resolve differences in a way that's loving towards both people. Number three, forgiveness means not taking things personally. It's my belief that what other people say and do is always about them, not us. This means we shouldn't take things personally, even if it's meant to be personal. When one of my nieces was around 7 years old, she was having trouble with some of the kids at school. And I said to her, when someone says something mean to you, they're really talking about themselves. Psychologists call this projection. We often project the things we don't like about ourselves onto other people. On this flip side, it's important to remember that when we feel offended or we feel upset by what somebody else is saying or doing, it's only because our ego has kicked in. If I'm upset by what another person says about me, chances are pretty good the only reason I'm upset is because I'm afraid what they're saying about me is true. So when we're not identified with our egos, we don't get upset and we don't have to take things personally. Now, I have a whole story. If you do watch my TED Talk or you read my book, there's a whole story in there about how not taking someone's attacks on me personally on Facebook about one of my photos turned into a very positive experience for both that person and myself. Now, I mentioned earlier that we all do what we think we need to do because we think it's the right thing to do. We think it's what we need to do to survive and or to be happy. I believe at the basis of almost every decision we make, it's this, we want to feel better. And our decisions are often motivated by what we think we need to do to survive or to be happy. This means that if someone does something that harms us, at some level, they believed it was necessary for them to do that. This doesn't make what they've done right, but it does open the way to understanding. And as we'll see later, understanding is one of the keys to forgiveness. Well, you might say, what if the other person is actually trying to harm us? In 12-step programs, they say, hurt people, hurt people. Greek philosopher Plato said, be kind, for everyone is fighting the same hard battle. And I will tell you, from my experience, most of us see life as a battle. We believe there's not enough of what we think we need to survive and or to be happy. And this makes it very difficult for us when it comes to loving each other, loving another person. But now we know better, and we can begin to question whether or not these assumptions are true. Number 4, forgiveness doesn't mean we let other people walk all over us. As I mentioned earlier, loving another doesn't mean we stop loving ourselves. The problem is many of us use, as I said earlier, we use anger for protection. Yet as most of us learn at some point in our lives, anger only makes things worse. It creates more problems than it solves. Anger says to the other person, you're wrong for doing this, and now I'm justified in attacking you. And it's your fault that I feel the way I do. No one likes to be threatened or blamed for how someone else feels, mostly because it's not true. I spent a lot of time in my book talking about the fact that we're solely responsible for what we think, feel, say, and do. We choose our feelings regardless of what someone else has done to us. Again, I'm not saying this is right, what they're doing is right, or making excuses, but we still have to decide for ourselves how we're going to respond to their actions. And we get to choose whether we respond from a place of love or fear. As I also mentioned in my book, anger is almost always preceded by fear. So what this means is that when we're angry, we're really afraid. Now, this is really important because when I communicate to another person that I'm afraid, rather than approaching them with anger, they don't perceive it as being attacked, and they're much more likely to stay in the conversation and be open to the communications. If, on the other hand, when I come at someone from a place of anger, chances are they'll feel threatened, they'll shut down, and they'll be much less likely to listen, which means nothing gets resolved. So if anger doesn't work to protect us, how can we deal with protecting ourselves with other people? For me, I say we have to learn how to use healthy boundaries. I devote a lot of time in chapter 7 in my book to how we can use boundaries to take care of ourselves instead of anger, instead of retaliation, instead of attack. For me, boundaries are the primary way we take care of ourselves in our relationships. In my experience, healthy boundaries can almost completely eliminate the need for anger and conflict. What are boundaries? Boundaries are dividing lines between things. They're a way to create a safe space between us and other people. In my life, I've found that the closer I am to someone, the more I need to have healthy boundaries with them. I use 5 different kinds of boundaries in my relationships. There's definitely overlap between them, and there's no one right boundary to use in any given situation. First, so I'm just going to list the 5 boundaries and talk a little bit about them. First boundary are physical boundaries. Second boundary is temporal or time boundaries. The third boundary are verbal boundaries. Number 4, mental boundaries. Number 5, emotional boundaries. It sounds really complicated, but it's actually quite simple. Physical boundaries determine physical contact or space between people. Time boundaries determine how much time we spend with someone, whether it's on the phone or in a meeting. Verbal boundaries determine or dictate what's acceptable in terms of the type and tone of language that somebody uses with us. Mental boundaries involve the sanctity of our thoughts and our private mental space. In that category, I often say that I'm not required to defend, explain, or justify my decisions to anybody. That's my own private mental space. I can if I want to, but I don't have to. And emotional boundaries determine what's acceptable to us in terms of another person's feeling or emotional state. All these boundaries are designed to help us feel safe and comfortable in our relationships and are usually different with different people. Boundaries are very specific. So there's no one size fits all when it comes to boundaries. In his book, Pulling Your Own Strings, Wayne Dyer says we teach other people how it's okay to treat us. And so I interpret that to mean that it's up to us to set and enforce our boundaries with other people. Yet we also have to remember that if we want other people to respect our boundaries, we have to be willing to respect theirs. This is where negotiation comes in. Healthy people discuss their needs and are willing to compromise and find solutions that work for everyone. The idea is that by setting healthy boundaries at the beginning of a relationship, before there's a problem, we never get to the point of needing drastic action to take care of ourselves. But remember, if someone is really being harmful or inappropriate, it's okay to do whatever we need to do to protect ourselves. This includes calling the police, moving or physically removing ourselves from the situation, or removing the other person from our lives. Point number 5, understanding fosters forgiveness. A Course in Miracles says to forgive is to overlook or look past. The invitation with forgiveness is to strive to see the good in other people, irrespective of what they've done. We still take care of ourselves, as I mentioned above, but we do it without attacking them or making them wrong. I said earlier, we do all that we do because we think it's what we need to do to survive and or to be happy. This is true of both individuals and nations. But now, as members of the Sunday gathering, we know that this raises some important considerations. First, if it's true that we don't die, and I believe that's the case, then it takes some of the pressure off in terms of survival, making decisions that we think we need to do to survive. Yes, the body can die and can even be harmed or injured, but who we really are is eternal, and spirit survival is never in doubt. I'm not saying we should ignore the body or our earthly experiences, but in terms of the bigger picture, this gives us some perspective when dealing with forgiveness of ourselves and other people. Second, in terms of happiness, many of us are waking up to the fact that it's not how much stuff we accumulate during a given incarnation that brings us joy. Rather, it's the amount of love that we share. True happiness is found in unity and oneness with others, not in separation or division. In my experience, many of the problems between people stem from misunderstandings. Therefore, when dealing with conflict, it's helpful to at least try to understand where the other person is coming from. The following is a little exercise that can help with that. The next time you're tempted to judge or attack someone, say this to yourself. You don't have to say this to them, say this to yourself. If I saw the world the way they see the world, and if I saw myself the way they see themselves, then I would probably be doing the exact same thing they're doing, and that makes me the same as them. Again, this doesn't mean that we agree with what they're doing, but at least we can begin to understand why they're doing it. And understanding goes a long way in fostering peace, whether between individuals or nations. A Course in Miracles says all attacks are a call for help. When we approach other people from this place, we're much less likely to respond to them with anger. Imagine if we all had enough compassion to feel love towards someone who is attacking us. How would that change things? Think about how much pain someone must be in to want to hurt another person. Sane, healthy people don't attack others to resolve their differences. It's only when we're in pain that we hurt others. Jesus said, "Forgive them, for they know not what they do." I would extend this and say, "Forgive them, for they know not who they are." This means everyone who thinks they're a body knows not who they are or what they're doing. So for me, the big question with forgiveness boils down to this. Are we willing to see ourselves and others the way God sees us? Are we willing to see everyone as sacred, divine beings and give them the benefit of the doubt? And maybe accept that just like us, they've forgotten who they really are and they're having a bad day. When someone harms us, it simply means they've lost their way. The same is true when we harm others. But to see the good in others, we have to be willing to see the good in ourselves. It's only when I love and forgive myself that I can truly love and forgive others. By seeing spirit in everyone, forgiveness becomes natural. So help everyone to see their own divinity by you seeing their divinity and seeing your own. When we do this, everything will change. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Would you hold up your book for us? You'll have to say something so the camera's on you.
Can you see it?
And the title?
Be bigger than you think you are, overcoming our self-imposed limits to have the life we want. BeBiggerToday.com. Available on Amazon, available on my website, available as an audiobook, ebook, Kindle, all of that.
Oh, great. Peter, thank you so much. And ladies and gentlemen, I know he can't see us all, but if you want to just hit your raise hand button as a round of applause. What beautiful words. My goodness. And I don't know if anybody's like me, but I caught an if only sneaking in my thoughts. If only I knew this earlier. Oh, but as we say, we human beings do the best job we can every day of our lives. The good news is the link you use to join us today becomes your replay link. And me, for one, would love to hear that again, and will definitely be reading your book. And just really from the bottom of my heart, on behalf of everyone, thank you for that. Very valuable. With that, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to change gears a little, and we are going to move into our demonstration of mediumship. And if you're here for the first time, this is the time that we get to hear from loved ones in the unseen world. There may be, well, there's over 100 of us here today, and I know there's plenty of people watching our replay. The spirit world works kind of the same way we do. There's 4 of us in front of you today. And there are hundreds, if not thousands, that will see our Sunday gathering. There are probably tens of thousands of loved ones that are gathered here today, family members and friends in the spirit world. But there'll be a handful of them that will give people messages within our community to let all of us know that they live on. So don't be thinking, oh, if my loved one doesn't come through, it means they're not around. Well, no, that's not the case, because I can guarantee you, packed around your shoulders right now are your loved ones, big smiles on their faces, probably kissing your cheeks, got their arms wrapped around you, and they get just as excited for this as we do. We'll have Shirley Ann demonstrate first, and then Avril. And the way this works is we'll first hear a piece of music, and it's just meant to lift your spirits. And Peter, I know you're new to the We Don't Die Sunday Gathering family, but every so often I like to put a little funny in the video and put our faces on some dancing people. So please forgive me if you don't like my crazy sense of humor, but it lifts us and it is fun. It is entertaining. Absolutely it is. And while the song's playing, just think of your loved ones and healthy, well, and whole, and just being with you, really. When our mediums demonstrate, the spirit folks have this all planned out. Who's going to be stepping forward? Shirley Ann and Avril have spent many, many, many years training and working with the other world. The friends, our loved ones, plant images in their mind, feelings, shared memories, maybe what they did for a living, and they act as the receiver. So they will be sharing a few initial bits of information about the person who is in touch with them. So we want you to be on the edge of your seat and listen. And if you can recognize 100% of the information about the person they are describing, we want you to press your raise hand button. Now, anyone who didn't just press your raise hand button, if you want to press it again just to see how it works, feel free to press it now. And then it'll say lower hand, and you can lower your hand. Like I said, we do ask that you understand 100% of the information, because often several people will raise their hand with some information. So we want to make sure we get to the right person. If you are a person that ends up working with our medium, I'll press a special button on my side that will ask you to unmute yourself, and a special button will pop up. We'll let Avril and Shirley Ann do all the work, though. Your job will be easy. Just say yes or no, or maybe I don't know, to the information that's coming through. I know as a recipient, oh, I just want to share everything about my loved one. We're asking you not to do that. Let them do the work so we all leave this Sunday gathering knowing that they are talking to our loved ones, and that's where the information is coming through. So just a good whole yes or no. And no simply means a new opportunity, so don't feel bad if something doesn't make sense. You can give them a no. No problem at all. So with that, what we're going to do is we're going to play a song thinking of Thanksgiving. Anybody remember the one-hit wonder Sister Sledge, We Are Family? Well, that's the song I've chosen for today. And don't be surprised if you might see some faces that you may recognize to bring you a little smile, because we call that Sandra magic. Here we go. Ramona put in the chat box, Sandra's always up to something. You bet I am. We've got to have fun. We have to smile, and this is joyful. So we have Shirley Ann as our first medium today. Hi, Shirley Ann.
Hello, Sandra, and definitely put a smile on all our faces, I would say. And it's always such a privilege to come and be with you and everyone watching. So thank you very, very much. Now, as I move my mind to my awareness to the spirit world, I feel like I have a young man here, and I feel like he's looking for mum. And I do feel as though this young man was actually involved in an accident. So can we just put that out there, Sandra, please?
Yes, we can. All right, ladies and gentlemen, young man looking for his mom who has been in an accident. If you can understand that information, if you would press your raise hand button. And Shirley Ann, we have two ladies with their hands raised.
Okay, and I feel as though this young man, he was definitely not to blame in this accident, and I feel as though he either passed at the scene or very, very close to the accident happening.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, we have a third hand that's come up. Perry, Mary, and Deborah, you all have your hands raised, and I'm asking if you can understand 100% of that information to keep your hands raised. All right, hands remain raised.
Okay, I feel as though this accident did involve a car, and I actually feel as though this young man may have been hit by a car.
By a car. Okay. I'm going to lower everyone's hands because every so often someone has their hand up accidentally. All right, all hands are down. And ladies, if you can understand 100% of that information, including the final part, hit by the car, if you go ahead and raise your hand one more time for me. Oh, and then what happens is nobody raises their hand.
It's okay, Sandra. It's
Okay.
okay. All righty. I do feel as though I have a young man here. I know he's looking for mum. I know he was involved in an accident. If he wasn't hit with a car, I know he was thrown out of the vehicle.
All right, thank you. Tatiana has her hand raised, so let's bring her in. Tatiana, hello?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can, loud and clear.
Hi.
Tatiana, you can understand all that information?
I can. It's not my son though. It would be my sister-in-law's if this is the right situation, right person.
Okay, let's just work with this a moment. So this would actually be your nephew.
Yep.
Righty. Okay, I knew he was a very, very close family member, and I feel as though this young man, you know, he was innocent to the accident. He was like he was in the wrong car, the wrong time, at the wrong place.
Right.
Okay, and I do feel with this young man, am I correct in saying he liked to play the drums?
You know, that I don't know. Unfortunately,
Okay.
I wish I knew if that were the case.
Okay, because I do feel that in there he either played them or he enjoyed them, but we will leave that since you don't know. But this young man, I feel like he was on his way to further education. Can you understand that?
Yes.
He was still making up his mind exactly what he wanted to do, and I feel in general, this was a really, really good young man.
Oh, yes.
He absolutely tried his best in everything he did. And you would know he had a very close relationship with his mum.
Yes, very much so.
And would you be aware of a photo that she keeps quite handy? And, I feel like she passes it or looks at it very, very regularly, of just this young man and your sister-in-law.
Yes.
Okay. And it's actually a beautiful photo. And I feel if you go into the house, you will actually admire it because he's just such a handsome, bright young man.
Yes.
All righty. Now, I also know with your sister-in-law, she's kind of kept things the same. Like I want to go into his bedroom and there's an area in there that she's kept the same.
That I don't know, because she's not in the same house. So
Okay. All
unless
righty.
things, we live in different states, and that's why I don't know.
Okay. You would know, though, she has a lot of his things still.
Yes, definitely.
Yes. Because I feel as though he's making me aware that you would know that she sits with them sometimes. Can you understand?
Yes.
Yeah. And I know that you two are in fairly close contact.
Yes.
Because he's making me aware of the grief for him between the both of you.
Yes.
It's like the load is shared, or you try and share the load with your sister-in-law.
Yes. Well, I think what it might be is my husband passed last year, and so that's her brother. So we connect on that. I'm sorry, I'm crying.
No, that's okay. And when you speak about your husband, because there was also a gentleman coming in, this was a very social man.
Yes.
And I feel like the young man I'm speaking about and his dad, they were very, very similar.
That I also don't know, to be honest. I didn't know my nephew super well because we didn't live near each other, but my husband grew up with him. So I wish I could tell you for sure or not.
Okay. But I do know that the gentleman that you're speaking about also, I feel as though he was near retirement.
My husband? No,
Yes.
he was not.
Okay. All righty. We'll leave that then. I feel as though that's possibly our next contact coming through. Okay. I just want to go back to the young man though.
Yes.
This young man, I have to say too, his manners, he had beautiful manners.
Yes.
And I know too, this young man had lovely teeth.
Yes.
And the smile, he had this massive smile that would absolutely brighten up a room. And I know that you would have been aware at social functions, you would have seen him going up behind his mum and just putting his hands around his mum.
Yep.
Yeah, just for those big cuddles. I just, it's almost the forgiveness here to pass on to your sister-in-law. It's like he was there in the morning and he wasn't there at night.
Yep.
And it's like she carries this. I'm meant to be there to protect my babies. And it's like she carries this. But of course, there was nothing she could do. It was totally out of her control.
Yes.
And I wish she would relay that to her, because it's like she's carrying another baby all the time.
Yeah.
And I know that there's certain things that come on TV and certain musics that she hears, and she actually starts to weep.
Okay, I will. I'm going to have her listen to this, and I'm sure she'll confirm a lot of it.
All right. Well, I'd just like to leave you with this, Tatia, of I want to give from this nephew of yours to his mum peace.
Okay.
That's the main thing here, is peace. He wants her to have peace, because I feel like since his death, she's tossed and turned and tossed and turned. Could I have done? What could I have done? All these sorts of things with this young man.
Yes.
Okay, so I'll leave you with a beautiful memory of your nephew. And it's a good excuse to have a good talk to your sister-in-law.
For sure. I was just thinking about her today. It's right minutes before before I got on here. I wasn't even thinking about connecting with her son here. I was thinking about her. So I will definitely have her listen to this. Thank you so much.
It's a good time. Thank you.
Thank you, Tatiana. Thank you, Charlene.
Now, Sandra, I will go to this gentleman who is here with me, and I feel like this is a husband. So I'm looking for a wife, his wife, and I feel as though this gentleman, he did pass very, very quickly, and I feel it was where at the scene, because I feel it's heart. I feel he fell, and I feel like he passed at the scene. But I do feel as though his wife either made it to the scene just before he passed, because I feel like she's holding his hand. Can I put that out there?
Thank you very much. All right, ladies, if you can understand all this information, if you would raise your hand. We have 3 ladies with their hands raised. 4.
And I do feel as though where this gentleman had his heart attack was a fairly public place.
All right, ladies, you can all take that information. Hands remain up. Yes.
Now, I also know that the paramedics were either very, very close, or they were right there, and you were holding his hand, waiting for them to get there. There was an urgency there. And I know there was a look exchanged between the 2 of you just minutes before that moment.
Thank you, Shirley.
This is a very Pacific incident.
Okay, I'm going to lower everyone's hands and just ask if you can take 100% of that information, because we have many people with their hands raised. If you could take all of that information, go ahead and put your hand back up, please. Lisa and Carrie.
Okay, so you can both take gentleman that passed, and actually I feel like this gentleman would have passed this year, actually. Still 2 people. We're down to Lillian. Okay, Lisa.
Lisa.
Can I speak to Lisa, please?
Yes, absolutely. Lisa, if you could press your unmute button. Hi, Lisa.
Hi, Sandra.
Hello, Lisa.
Hello, sure.
I know that this is still very raw, and this gentleman is giving me the feeling that it's still very raw for him as well, because am I correct in saying this gentleman was near retirement?
Yes.
And you were starting to make plans, like this gentleman was looking forward to retirement, and I feel as though you were starting to make plans of your life moving forward together.
Yes.
And I also feel Lisa, you were considering moving house or moving area together to make this new life.
Yes.
Yes. And it was almost like these plans come to a complete standstill.
Yes.
Yeah. All righty. Now, I know that this very emotional glance, look, you knew and he knew that that was the final time, can I say?
Yes, absolutely.
There was that instant feeling there, and it's like the memory started flooding back, because I know you've been together. You've been together a long time.
40 years to the day.
Yeah.
He passed on our 40th year anniversary.
Right. Okay. Now I also know with that 40th anniversary, you actually had something special planned.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And
Yes.
am I correct in saying it was quite a big party, actually?
Yes.
And that was pretty difficult. That was very difficult for you to sort out, but I know that you had support with that.
No.
Sorting that out.
No.
Okay, I'm sorry with that. If I'm incorrect with that support, then when your husband passed, you had the support from the family.
Extended family.
Extended family. Thank you very much for that. And I do know that, gosh, I'm sorry, I just feel your grief is so deep. It's still so deep within you. And I know that you come on today hoping that you would hear from him. And he's been standing here right next to me, ready to go. Now, I also feel as though you've got some jewelry that he has bought you also too from other anniversaries.
Yes. Wow. That's incredible. I was looking at it yesterday.
Yeah. And can I say so was he? Because I feel as though he was with you at that moment, because he wanted to wipe the tears from your eyes, and he wanted you to just sit down and just remember the memories with joy rather than so much sadness.
Yes.
Now, I also feel from this gentleman, you had discussions theoretically, if something happened to either of you, that you wanted each other to move on.
Yes.
But there's a feeling here that you just haven't been able to do that.
Yes.
There's a feeling within you that you probably won't.
Yes.
Now, I also feel as though I feel as though with the funeral, because he's drawing, you buried this gentleman.
No.
No, okay. If you didn't bury him then, because this is the confusion here, there was thoughts of burial, cremation. It sort of went back and forwards for a while.
Yes.
Okay. And I feel I'm smiling here because you've gone to quite an effort to choose the container of where his remains are.
Yes.
And I feel as though they're within pride of place in the home.
Yes.
He's also making me weird too that you go past and you just touch that container as you go past.
It's in my car with me all the time.
Okay. Now he's drawing my attention to. He's very proud. You've got a lovely photograph of him, quite a large one as well.
Yes. He keeps throwing it off the cabinet.
Because he's a very handsome man. He reminds me of
Very.
Kenny. Is it Kenny Rogers, the singer?
Somewhat, yes.
Somewhat. Okay. Now I do know this was a very social man, and I know he had a lot of friends.
Yes.
He was also involved in, I feel like some of the community sports.
Yes.
That went on. But I also know too that the I'll use the word kids, the children in the area, the young adults in the area, they really respected him.
Yes.
He could speak to them at their level. He didn't speak down to them. He spoke to them as young adults. And there's an appreciation here for young adults. He enjoyed young adults. He enjoyed children.
Yes.
And he looked at them as these are our future. And the way we treat them now is the way they will treat the world and others as they grow up. It was his philosophy.
Absolutely.
Righty. Now, I also know that this man was very clever with business.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
He was a very sharp-minded man when it came to making money, saving money, and putting money in investments where it would make the most.
Absolutely.
And that was another thing with him. He wanted to leave everybody well provided for.
Yes.
But I have to say, he wasn't that generous with himself.
Oh, yes.
He would spend money on other people before it came to him.
Yes.
And I feel as though here, it may even be members of the family, he's actually helped them out financially with different things.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. Let's look. Lisa, do you have a son? You've got a son?
No, a dog. He's like my son.
Oh, he's like your son. Okay, I will leave that then, because I feel as though young men around your husband. So it's probably ones that he's semi-adopted. I feel
most
because
likely.
he can help so many people out. But Lisa, I want to leave you with so much love from this man, and knowing that he's not too far away. And when you feel somebody holding your hand very tightly, it's probably not your imagination.
Thank you so much.
I'll leave you with this love. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. Thank you, Shirley Ann.
Okay, Sandra, am I doing a third?
It's up to you. We're not in a rush. If you'd like to, Avril, you're good. Go after. No rush. We don't need to rush.
Okay.
Go for it.
Well, I'm going to throw this one out there. And I'm hoping that the owner will be here. I feel as though I have a gentleman who would have passed in a helicopter crash.
That is very specific. All right, ladies and gentlemen, you can understand that information, press your raise hand button. And this may not be an immediate relation, but it could be someone outside of the box. So if you can understand that, press your raise hand button.
Okay, then if it, Lisa, no, we have two.
Lisa and Emily. Could you still be with Lisa, or should we like to talk to Emily?
I'll just give a little bit more information, Sandra, if I may. I feel as though this was a helicopter crash. I feel as though this gentleman passed at the scene, and I feel as though it was quite difficult for emergency services to get into the accident site.
Thank you. Lisa's hand remains raised. Lisa?
Hi again.
Hi, Lisa. Emily, could you possibly listen as well, please?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Thank you. Hi, Lisa. Because
Hi.
I feel as though this gentleman was actually the pilot.
No.
No. Okay. Can I ask Emily, can you recognize this gentleman as the pilot?
Emily, are you there? Yes.
Hi, no, not the pilot.
Okay. If it wasn't the pilot, then it would have been somebody sitting. It would have been somebody sitting up with the pilot. The gentleman would have been right there with the pilot.
I don't know.
You don't know.
It was a medevac flight.
Okay. Lisa, would your person have been sitting right up there next to the pilot?
Yes.
Okay, all righty. I'll keep working here, Sandra, if I can. Now, this was actually quite a good friend of yours, Lisa.
Yes.
Okay, you've got them all coming in today. And I feel as though this friend would have actually known your husband.
He's my brother-in-law, and yes.
Okay, so we've got the whole family peeking in. Now, this was, I feel like a very responsible, genuine man. If he said he was doing A, he would do A. He would not get diverted.
Yes.
He was, I'm going to class him as a perfectionist, actually, because he was very precise in things that he did.
Yes.
And again, had a lot of knowledge about a lot of things.
Yes.
Now, I feel as though this flight that he was on, it was booked for a while, and he was actually really looking forward to it. It's a bit of an adventure.
Yes.
Okay. You know, and I feel like this gentleman would have called you sis.
Yes.
Because I feel, hi, sis. Like this, and you know, he's such a lovely, caring man. But gosh, it was such a shock to the whole family. It's like the whole family just stood still.
Yes.
Because, yeah, of course, nobody dreamed this was going to happen, but it was like just so out of the blue. And I feel like there was family members when the call comes through, there were family members hard to find or hard to get in contact with.
Yes. They were in other countries. Yes.
And they needed that because they needed to know. And I feel as though not everybody could be at his service that had been arranged.
Yes.
All right. Now, I also know that this gentleman, not only was he very good with his mind, he was very good with his hands.
Yes.
Because I feel like he could tinker with things, like these tools around him. And again, he was very precise about his tools.
Yes.
They were very clean and they were packed away. And woe betide you, Molly Whoppy, if you didn't put them back in the same place.
Yes.
But he was always ready to help you. If you needed something that he could advise you on, he was always there to help. Just
absolutely.
People.
Yes.
You could just bring him and he would be there. There was no moans, there was no groans, he would just be there for you.
Yes.
And this is what I feel this gentleman is here today for you, just to be there, just to give you the strength and just to know that I feel like there's quite a band of men, a band of guys, you know, in the spirit world that all know each other and like they're all raising a glass.
Oh yeah, definitely.
but there's a lot of banter and there's a lot of fun, and it's like they would have been if they were still here with us.
Yes, absolutely.
Do you know, Lisa, I feel like they're all behind you. They all want you to just throw open the curtains, throw open the windows, let people in. Lisa, do you understand that?
Oh yeah, they come around a lot, a whole house full of them.
Yeah. The big thing here too is don't be afraid to ask for help.
Thank you so much.
They're right there, Dal. They're right there for you. And not only them, you've got them stacked back in the spirit world, but these guys, these men are ready just to lift you up, put you on their shoulders and take you out into the world. Just allow them.
Thank you so much, Shirley Ann. Thank you so much.
Lisa, you have a wonderful day, and I hope Christmas is magical for you.
Oh, thank you very much, Shirley Ann. Thank you, Lisa. Thank you for your commitment to all people. And now we have Avril joining us. Hello, Avril.
Hello, Sandra. Thank you. Shirley Ann, that's wonderful to hear the whole personality, you know, our loved ones in spirit. They're so full of their personality, their uniqueness. It's fabulous. And what a great topic, forgiveness and giving thanks. And that's a theme that works through our communications with those in the spirit world. And Peter, that was a fabulous introduction to your book. And I have to say that, yes, we blame others, but often in the communications with the spirit world, the spirit is taking the blame, taking responsibility, and coming back with words of healing and words of forgiveness. So the synchronicity in these services is quite amazing. Now, I'm aware of Father in the spirit world, and I know that you played chess with Father, and I know that and I feel this is Dad. I feel Father is wrong to use, and I feel that cheating was an acceptable part of the game.
Well, how about that? All right, ladies and gentlemen, if you can understand all that information, go ahead and press your raise hand button. That's funny. Chess with Dad. No hands being raised.
All right. Well, I can, I want to change the cheating. Let's put that to one side. Let's just say you played chess with Father, Dad.
All right. We have Amy and Jane with their hands raised, and Eugene. Thank you.
All right. Now, I do want to go back to the cheating, and but I know this was to do with I don't know chess, but this was to do with the pawns. So the pieces, the chess pieces, the pawns. Does anyone understand that?
All right, you three. Okay, one hand went down. We had all hands went down.
All hands went down. Then, if that's not right, would one of the recipients understand that not all the chess pieces were there in the game?
Let's see if they put their hands back up. No. Three that played chess with Dad for sure.
And I do want to stick with Dad. I don't want to change that. But I do know there was a particular story about playing chess with Dad. There's a particular, in fact, it's not that. There was a particular tradition of playing chess in a different way than you would usually play it.
Those that had your hands raised, can you understand this or know where she's going with this? You're getting a little tug at your heart.
Right, let me go on to something else I'm aware of. And I know in Father's work, he was very firmly committed to people not cheating the system.
Okay, Eugene, Eugene, if you could press your unmute button.
Okay.
Oh, thank you. Hello.
Eugene, you understand that in your dad's work, he had quite a formal role, quite an important role.
I guess so. I mean,
All right, let me try and get that more clear. And I have to say that you would understand that cheating was just not allowed.
yeah, he was pretty straight about that kind of stuff.
Okay, all right. So it's very black and white, but I know that, so you would understand that in his workplace, he had to be very clear about boundaries.
I would only guess. I didn't spend any time with him at his work.
Yeah.
So,
But why I'm saying that is I feel that he had quite a different personality at home. I know that being at home, he was much more relaxed. And
well,
you can say no to me. No is really good because
I
it
know
puts
how
me
he
on
was
track.
I know how he was at home. I just don't know. It's all kind of guessing.
All right, it's all relative. It's all relative. But you would know that your father had a difficult time at work sometimes.
Yes.
And he
Yes.
felt he was a bit, I'm going back to these pawns, these chess pieces, and I'm very aware that father in his workplace, I feel you would know this, felt like I feel he was used a little bit or imposed upon.
I can take that.
Yeah, but I also feel this is relevant to what he's bringing forward, is that you get a sense of being used like a pawn in that way.
Me.
You.
Perhaps, I don't know.
All right.
I thought we all feel like that sometimes.
Okay. But I know when I go back to that time of playing chess with your father, it's quite a precious time.
Well, it was an emotional time. And
it was an emotional. Yeah,
wasn't,
and what I feel with that is that your father could actually teach you things whilst maneuvering the pieces around in that chessboard.
no, I don't. I mean, it wasn't like he was teaching me any more than chess. I don't recall.
All right. But you would understand that your father wasn't always the best at explaining things in everyday conversation.
Right. I would.
I feel he would not be very direct and in his fathering of you.
Yeah, he had his shortcomings. As far as.
And I mean, it's this. I felt him come forward very strongly. I felt him come forward, wanting forgiveness and wanting to be thankful of the opportunities and the times that he did spend with you, because I feel those were quite limited.
Yes, I guess, because yes.
Yeah. And I'm sorry to keep this short, because I've got someone else I want to, time's a bit short, and I've got another contact I want to go to. But please accept the forgiveness and the gratefulness for your father, because it really feels quite sincere, even though he did not express it enough.
Okay, I appreciate
it. You understand? And he just feels so overwhelmed to be able to do this today, and to be so that you, and to have you so open to him coming forward like this.
Thank you.
Thank you, Eugene.
Okay.
Thank you both.
Now I'm aware of a young boy in the spirit world, and I believe he had a skin condition with pigmentation, especially on his face. So I feel there were very dark marks, and there was a lot of white white skin discoloration as well.
Thank you, Avril. Ladies and gentlemen, can someone recognize this young boy? Press your raise hand button, of course. No hands, Avril.
Right, can I ask, does anyone here has had issues with skin pigmentation themselves? Quite serious. It'd be like a birthmark, quite a large birthmark.
Vivian. Vivian, if you could.
Yes,
unmute yourself.
I'm here. Well, not me, but my daughter.
Okay, and you would understand a boy connected to your daughter in the spirit world called Michael.
No,
Would you understand someone called Jackson?
no,
Right, but you would understand. You would understand a young friend, a young male friend of your daughter's in the spirit world.
no, not that. I'm not aware of someone.
You're not, you're,
No.
and are you aware of a young boy in the spirit world?
No, no, not that
Okay.
I remember.
Thank you.
No.
No,
Yeah.
I'm just going to, thank you, Vivian.
You're
Let me
welcome.
just work a little bit more and see what I've got.
Okay.
You would understand with your daughter that a lot of treatment has been tried on her face.
No.
All right. Okay. Thank you, Vivian. I'm just going to leave that. And Sandra, thank you, Vivian. I'm out of time. I do feel that was with a boy in the spirit world quite strongly. I had the connection with Michael, and I had the awareness of Michael Jackson. It wasn't him, but the name Michael and the name Jackson. So that's the evidence. I don't have time to work on that and to expand it, but just leave that with our audience, and perhaps someone will, be able to relate to that at some point.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for that, and Shirley Ann as well. Ladies and gentlemen, our mediums volunteer their time and they work so hard for training. And I wish there was an easy recipe for success with our spirit communication. And you may or may not know it, but I have 2 podcasts, and the Shades of the Afterlife podcast that I have most recently, the last many episodes, are really to build our own connections with our loved ones. It is wonderful to hear through another person that your loved one is around, and mediums are fantastic. Of course they are, but our loved ones can work in such subtle ways to get our attention. Just recently in our Facebook group, I posted what are some of the signs that you've received from your loved ones. And there's hundreds of people that have responded. And when I took a look down at what people were saying, sometimes there are things that it's like, oh, that's happened to me too. I would have never paid attention to that. So you may enjoy reading some of those. You can easily find our Facebook group. If you're not a member of it, just go to WeDon'tDie.com, and at the top of the page it says Facebook group. And also you'll see radio shows, and you can listen to some of the past episodes of either show. But our loved ones can suddenly bring a shared memory to our mind, or a feeling that just seems to come out of nowhere. I don't think that we get all the information in the universe the day we expire. I think there's a place called the halls of learning that we can learn. I think some of the younger people that transition may be able to work technology and turn the lights on and off, but if you get some of the grandmothers, well, maybe that might not be their thing, but maybe at some point you just feel their love with you. It's those subtle signs. And of course, they can show up in dreams. When we have nightmares, though, that can be our own subconscious at work, because it should be very loving things. And there's no time in the spirit world. So what may be 30 years for us till we see our loved one again, for them, it's just the blink of an eye, and there's a reunion there. But please trust that your loved ones are right there. And I know Thanksgiving holiday is coming up in America, and I know holidays are a real tough time with loved ones who are no longer walking this earth. Our mind will want to kick in those memories of guilt and the I should haves, and why did this happen? And this may not be an easy thing to do, but I have practiced this myself when those times of guilt have popped in, because we build a new habit for guilt or negative thinking, is to side rail it or derail it, I guess, and slide in something called gratitude. And while it may not be easy if you're really feeling low to just jump into, ooh, I feel so great, let me just relive this happy memory. No, I know that. But if you can just take some time to walk down memory lane and just start thinking of times and things that you're grateful for, even if it's the most basic things like having a bed or having a comfy pillow or having friends or whatever it may be. And you'll find if you keep adding in little bits of things you're grateful for, it will really change your mood and it will help you feel better. And of course, that's all we want for you. If you are sitting around a Thanksgiving table or any table with people, whether they're loved ones, friends, whoever, one good thing just to really make everyone feel good is start asking people their favorite memories. Maybe when a husband met their wife, or what was your favorite time at a holiday, or what's your favorite vacation spot, or what's your favorite joke? You start talking like that and it can just lighten everyone up and feel good. But just know your loved ones are around, even if you can't see them. That moment that you close your eyes for the last time here on earth, you're going to open them. They're all going to be there. Even your pets are going to be there. They will. And you'll realize maybe how hard it is to connect with those left behind, whatever that may be. Just, I'm asking you to have a little bit of faith. Also at the WeDon'tDie.com website, if you click on the store, scroll down, you can find my audiobook, We Don't Die, A Skeptic's Discovery of Life After Death. Use coupon code FREE. Chapter 10 is How to Survive Grief. And I think it's one of the most important things. So you'll understand really this road called grief. And unfortunately, the only way to the other side it is straight through it. But there are some things we can do to lift our mood and help us heal. So we invite you to take advantage of that. I don't think I have anything else to say. I think I'm excited to show you our closing video. I am. But before I go any further, I would like to turn it over to Shirley Ann for our closing prayer. And don't miss our closing video. So Shirley Ann.
Thank you, Sandra. So if we could just join together, just close our eyes and go into that quiet space and just mentally and emotionally and from your soul, I would just like you to reach out to everybody within our community right round the world. We're a big community from all different countries. So just link with those souls that have joined us here today. Then I'd like you to send a link out to the spirit world, drawing those loved ones close, drawing them really close and giving them a big hug. And let's be thankful that we can do that. Let's be thankful for every single soul that has been with us this morning, for this hour and a half, this time that we have spent together with knowledge and fun and humor and music. And let's just reach out and take a little bit of that healing and just tuck it into our heart. And I want you to take a second little piece and pop it in your pocket to give to someone else that you're going to meet. Let's give thanks that every day we can get up and we get another try at this. We get another try at improving ourselves, our life, and more than anything, someone else's. Let's pass that kindness on and bear in mind those countries that are facing obstacles at the moment for all sorts of reasons. We should give thanks that we are able to live a life of certainty. So, ladies and gentlemen, I'd just like you to go away remembering to be kind to one another and be thankful for every day that we have. Amen.
Thank you very much, Shirley Ann. And one more thank you to Avril and Peter for being our special guests today. I think this is just the beginning of a beautiful relationship with our community. We really appreciate it. Peter's website is bebiggertoday.com. Now, we are going into Thanksgiving holiday, and many people typically eat turkey. So while this is not a music video, it is something that just brings me delight every time I see it. This is Rowan Atkinson, also known as Mr. Bean, stuffing his, well, it's a Christmas turkey, but it's a beautiful video. Enjoy. Oh, just a little fun. Well, whether you celebrate Thanksgiving or not, we are all so grateful to you. Thank you for being here. We will be back next Sunday, of course. We love you. We appreciate you. We're grateful for you. Thank you to our friends in the spirit world. That's it for us. Enjoy the rest of your day. Have a happy Thanksgiving week, and we'll see you next Sunday. Bye.
Thanks again. That was wonderful.